Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and caffeine addict. And today we are taking a look at another Majorkill video. This is Majorkill covering one of my favorite topics, Exterminatus. Right? If go big or go home, and frankly, the Imperium is already home. But before we get started, be sure to check out the merch store. I've got lots of cool parody t-shirts and just some general fun t-shirts, mugs, stickers, you name it. It's probably the best way to support the channel. And then once, of course, you've done that, let's get into it.
Guys and gal, there are a lot of ways to destroy the world. Massacring the environment, giving immature man-children access to nuclear weapons, or banning pornographic content on OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's got to be the worst business decision I've ever heard. And I understand that banks are like, we don't want to process people being naked. And oh my God, it kills me. Because if you want to have a good time and not have your day ruined, don't Google HSBC cartel money laundering, right? Those same banks that refuse to give OnlyFans money or help their IPO because, the ladies get naked are the same ones who literally took cartel money. Those people that grow heroin and process heroin, sell it to addicts, and then torture and kill their competition while posting it on the internet. Yeah, they took cartel money, laundered it, and helped those cartel billionaires become legitimately rich and buy politicians. So anyway, that's a story for a different time. Or for today, if you want to open up another tab and just punch some things into Google and learn a thing or two about your major multinational bank.
You don't need to use a big-ass planet-busting missile or some super virus to do it. But it's way quicker if you do. The factions in Warhammer 40k are not very good sports, often blowing up entire worlds to prevent them from falling into enemy hands. Some of these Exterminatuses are justified, and some are wildly petty. Today we'll go over what an Exterminatus is, the various methods and weapons that are capable of doing an Exterminatus, before diving into what the other non-Imperial factions do if they want to get in on the planet-ending fun. Let's get into it. We all know the classic Exterminatus. Drop a big ass bomb, then bada bing bada boom, the planet goes kaput. Well, this is the best way to get the job done. Shockingly, these world-ending super nukes are rare and expensive as shit, so other methods had to be developed. The first one...
Developed? Come on, man. We know the Imperium doesn't develop anything new.
The most common method is to get an Imperial fleet to bomb the ever-living shit out of a planet. There is no special sauce or trick in this one. They just carpet bomb a planet's tits till it's flatter than a bulimic teenager.
Whoa, dark.
This method is reasonably cheap in the grand scheme of things, as all the missiles fired can be recreated by the Imperium without too much issue. Certain smaller cyclonic torpedoes can also be used to speed up this type of process. The next method, which is the classic one nuke no worries mate method, is the use of larger and more complex cyclonic torpedoes. Due to the rarity of these type of superweapons, only the Inquisition and Astartes chapters have access to these.
I love how they're like, we only give it to our most trusted and valuable agents, or random 1,000-person groups who turn into werewolves sometimes. Also, some of whom just sort of lose their minds and start violently attacking things. We give them unfettered authorization to use these. All right, the 1,000 Astartes chapters with like known gene seed flaws having access to cyclonic torpedoes is utter ridiculousness.
Whilst the Imperial Navy generally has to rely on mass orbital bombardment to get the job done. This method generally entails triggering a chain reaction, such as igniting a planet's atmosphere or creating a huge nuclear explosion.
Okay, here's one of the things that bothers me, is that you don't need a super weapon to destroy a planet, right? There's a gajillion asteroids and comets and stuff out there. All you would have to do is just drag a sufficiently large one into the atmosphere or orbit, right? In fact, you could probably just do the Rod of God method and would effectively do the same thing. You could also, of course, just sort of do some sort of bizarre like climate change hacking. A good example would be that when they developed the first nuclear weapon in part of the Manhattan Project, they actually had to do some hand-jammed math on blackboards to make sure that the weapon wouldn't ignite the oxygen in the atmosphere and burn the entire planet. And so I imagine that with a little bit of creative physics, you could probably get away with just igniting the atmosphere of certain worlds, especially if they had an unusually high oxygen content. And then the atmosphere would do your work for you and just kind of light everything on fire, while conveniently burning up all the oxygen. It would actually be a really easy way to do it, right? So yeah, I'd say if you were like, hey, Paul, you have to Exterminatus a planet, those would be my first two solutions because they seem like they're really cheap, especially the asteroids, right? Because the asteroids, they probably are orbiting the star anyway, so you don't even have to like harness them and drag them into place. You just gotta push their orbit a little bit until it takes care of the problem itself.
Yeah. Planets who are wiped out by this will generally maintain their structure and mass, but will find themselves lacking a biosphere, or any form of life. The next method is the virus bomb method, which is probably the least effective out of all of them, but will still ruin your day. A bomb is dropped that unleashes an extremely fast-acting virus which turns all biomatter it touches into extremely flammable sludge. That's already pretty bad, but it gets worse when that sludge is then ignited, causing a planet-wide huge firestorm.
Okay, so here's one of what I think would be the issues, is yes, this would work on a planet like Earth where there's just a lot of biomass. Well, but the problem is that you have these bizarre densities, right? You could drop a virus bomb on, say, a city or a jungle, and it would basically eat everything. And it would probably cause, if you did it at some strategic locations, you could probably cause a lot of environmental collapse as you change the nitrogen-oxygen balance in the atmosphere, but that's going to take you, decades, right? And if you were to drop it, though, on, let's say, a mining world, right, which you've got to imagine most of these worlds, right, probably have very small habitable zones, right? So they've got, I'm thinking like, let's say it was like Mars, right? Most, or modern Mars, not the Mechanicus Mars, right? So you've got this world, the oxygen, the atmosphere isn't really breathable, the ambient temperature is really, really cold. It's just not amenable to life. Most of it's barren anyway. But what you would have is probably, let's say 6 or 7 key located colonies. And those would maybe be domed, or they would have the like Cowboy Bebop style, like enclosed in a crater with a heavier than the ambient oxygen, like a big gas bubble basically of breathable air. Or you would have them living underground, something, right? Or like Vrax, right? Vrax is a planet with a single city, only one habitable city. And so you would have something like that, and that would be really hard to virus bomb because there's too much space without life. Of course, it'd be easier to just regular bomb because you only have to destroy like 6 locations.
Be like, how the fuck is that the least effective? And the answer to that is that it doesn't take out a planet's atmosphere, and simply hopping into any half-decent bunker will protect you. When Istvan 3 was virus bombed, about 75% of the space marines on the planet were able to survive by mad dashing into nearby makeshift bunkers. And when the planet of Tellurian was virus bombed, the population survived by living underground. Once the raging firestorm clears, you can even resettle on the planet's surface. Obviously, the score on TripAdvisor will drop dramatically, but hey, at least your planet isn't gone. The final main method of planet busting.
The other hard thing about that is that you would have to bring with you into the bunker or into the underground area is enough of your core ecosystem life to sustain yourself, right? So you would need a wide variety of samples of, say, bacteria, lichens, bugs, plants, maybe even some small animals, just enough that you could start to alter the atmosphere using life.
The Imperium.
But it would have to be able to survive and not be too high up on that ecosystem hierarchy that they, like you wouldn't want a giraffe without having a lot of trees, right? And to get a lot of trees, you need 10 or 15 years. But to get them to grow tall enough for a giraffe to want to eat them, etc., etc.
Uses is the 2-stage cyclonic torpedoes. Whilst most of the above methods mentioned are designed around wiping out a planet's...
Damn, Is this from like a 90s video game? Holy cow. Holy pixelation.
Biosphere, shit like Necron Tomb Worlds aren't very bothered by that. Hence you gotta get a little bit deeper. The two-stage cyclonic torpedo Exterminatus involves firing one big-ass bomb which cracks a planet's crust and exposes its core, and then the second big-ass bomb hits that core and destabilizes it, causing the planet to implode. Nasty. There are a few other ways the Imperium can end a world. Majorkill, aka Space Alexander the Great, once fucked a world by flinging its own moon at it, whilst Lord Commander...
See, that's what I'm talking about. Budget solutions. Good leaders think about efficiencies, you know?
Creed
That's why he's Space Alexander the Great.
destroyed a world by overloading a gigantic nuclear reactor on it.
That would only work if it's like one medium-sized colony.
As they say, there's plenty of ways to fuck a cat. I think that's how the saying goes.
Thanks for that, Majorkill. Demonetization incoming.
So what justifies an Exterminatus? The Imperium claims that an Exterminatus is always a last resort, and that they hate to do it, but there are plenty of very trigger-happy people who have ended a world that definitely didn't need ending. During the Months of Shame, the Inquisition destroyed quite a number of functional and loyal Imperial worlds purely because people that might become heretics later landed on these worlds for fuel and supplies. Yeah, that was a weird time. Exterminatuses are generally safe for shit like when Tyranids have overrun a world and are basically just eating it, or the forces of Nurgle have turned it into one big pile of AIDS jizz.
This is peak demonetization language.
That's when
My channel's done so.
an Exterminatus is a huge vibe, but there are times when especially petty Imperial commanders will lose a planet to, let's say, some Tau, yet they still Exterminatus it, even though the Tau would have improved the world if anything. Planet-ending toys are not unique to the Imperium, however. The other factions have their own methods. The Elder have weapons called Fire Hearts, which are bombs that you plant on a planet's surface, then use some voodoo to activate. Works a treat. The Dark Elder have a number of devices from the high...
I just love how it's like the Eldar. They're just like they use magic. They use space magic, and then the planet's gone. Done. The end.
of the Elder Empire.
The Eldar, like, I just love how the Imperium has lore that's like 8 levels down. You know, like that. There's lore about how the Imperium refuels its reactors, and the Eldar are just like, yeah, they Exterminatus planets with space magic. They just plant magic bomb, and then the magic bomb goes off.
That can also cause a ruckus. They can move stars around, which would be a huge pain in the ass if they got rid of your sun, because, you know, no more tanning.
Or they could just throw your planet into a sun.
They probably have a bunch more planet enders, but Elder aren't really known for destroying worlds. It's just not really their vibe. Chaos,
I love how things being a vibe or not is seen as a cogent explanation for why things do and do not happen in Warhammer 40k.
however, is able to destroy worlds in some colourful ways. Abaddon's flagship, called Planet Killer, can, you guessed it, kill planets. It does this by firing a fuck-off gun called the Armageddon gun into a world, and yeah, you can guess what happens next.
Wow, that's not stolen directly from Star Wars. I mean, that's literally the Death Star, just a different shape.
Another fun method that Chaos can use to yeet a world into oblivion is by summoning Aetios Ra Kares. This greater demon of Titsnitch is so powerful and batshit insane that immediately upon summoning it...
You mean bird shit insane? Ha 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 ha! Get it, it's a Zeets joke. I'm on fire today.
It will destroy everything around it, including the world it has been summoned onto. Very fun. Blackstone fortresses can also destroy worlds or even stars if you know how to use them properly. Abaddon didn't know how to do that though, so he instead threw one of them at Cadia and it achieved the same result. It'd be like not knowing how to fire a rocket launcher, so you just throw it at someone really hard. During the War of the Beast, the Orcs
That's actually pretty hilarious.
were able to come up with their own super Exterminatus weapons. See, they had attack moons, which were pretty fucking bonkers. These moons could be thrown at worlds, or they could produce gravity whips. Gravity whips being a weapon that greatly increased the gravity on a world, so much so that anyone on it would immediately be crushed, and all
I love how his example of the orcs is an orc space marine.
structures would be flattened. War of the Beast was a wild time. Any Tyranid invasion could be considered an attempted Exterminatus. They consume all biomatter on a planet and leave it a dead floating husk. Necrons have a few ways to ruin your day.
Yeah, Necrons feel like they have 15 ways to end a world. I feel like every one of their weapons in lore is a world ender.
A Necron world engine is like a Death Star and acts accordingly, being able to fire a shitload
Oh, okay, so they also, in addition to the blatantly stolen Death Star, they have an even more blatantly stolen Death Star. Thanks, GW.
of energy at a planet. Their most powerful weapon, however, is the Celestial Orrery. Honestly, this is by far the most overpowered device in the galaxy. Basically, it's a map of the galaxy, except it's interactive. If you press Ctrl Delete then end task on a star or a world, it will be destroyed. Fortunately, the keepers of the Celestial Orrery are very responsible and refuse to use it in an act of war. Instead, they just use it to prune the galaxy and keep balance.
Prune the galaxy and keep balance? That sounds like a really subjective way of operating. I'm familiar with many people's concept of a well-balanced diet. So I imagine that their concept of a well-balanced universe probably looks like pretty garbage. I'm surprised they're not like, well-balanced universe. One world for humans, one world for Tau, one world for Tyranids, one world for orcs, and then the Necrons supervised with all the other worlds.
It's implied that fucking with the Orrery can cause a chain reaction and end up doing an unbelievable amount of damage. It's a good thing that Necrons can't sneeze, otherwise we could be fucked. Believe it or not, the Tau can also destroy worlds and stars, albeit accidentally. They have experimented with Dyson Sphere technology in order to capture the energy of a star, but every attempt so far has resulted in the star being destabilized and going supernova, wiping out its local system. Hey, an accidental Exterminatus is still an Exterminatus.
Yeah, this is the opposite of the Manhattan Project, right? You try to build a bomb, and incidental to that, you build a sustainable power source. This is like the opposite, right? You try to build a sustainable power source and accidentally build a bomb.
Commander Fire.
Though technically a sustained fission reaction was developed first, and then the weapon later.
Farsight once carpet bombed the living shit out of a planet, then terraformed it so it became wildly flammable before then setting it ablaze to wipe out every orc spore on it. This is more or less a combination of a virus bomb and an orbital bombardment Exterminatus. Likewise, on a water planet, he created gigantic tsunamis, and on a rocket planet, he created apocalyptic earthquakes, all of which could be considered a low-level Exterminatus.
Yeah, if you change the environment enough that life can't survive there, then you have performed an Exterminatus in all the ways that count.
One of the Tau's experimental weapons exploded once, and it took the entire moon it was on with it, so if they figure out how to recreate that, then they have another option there. But yeah, the Tau aren't huge on planetary holocausts, so a full-on Exterminatus is not something they often go for. Exterminatuses have their place, and there have been huge assets to each faction at times, mainly when dealing with Nurgle or the Tyranids. However, they are also a bit of a meme due to the occasional misuse. That Exterminatus scene from TTS...
You know what, they're just running around shooting each other down there. Better just lay the Exterminatus upon these heretics. Direct fire!
Okay, that's pretty funny.
Seems kinda dumb, but that's pretty much what happened during the months of shame. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. For only $1 per month give you access to a boatload of Battle Mace 40 million hentai. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the...
Man. Oh, Battle Mace 40 million. Love it. Love it. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out old Majorkill's video. The link is in there. And be sure to check out the merch store. Check out the second channel. Join me on my live streams. And yeah, till next time, I will see you guys later.